Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue is still spinning on those ones and twos. Fam, not for nothing, but as I heard our intro, the doom, 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 it makes me laugh because Grease has been on like the TVs for the holidays. And I've watched Grease several times. And I always watch that scene where the principal in the office and she starts hitting the xylophone that do-do-doom, 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 do-do-doom. And I remember being inside the studio with Robert E. Lee, our old school producer, and saying, "Can you give us like an intro like that, but kind of like modernize it, synthesize it?" And he's like, "Hell yeah, I got this." And they made the graph, they made the xylophone after we watched Grease, and it's still with us to this day, fam.
Yeah, and Johnny has watched Grease more times than I think anybody else in the world. He used to watch that movie on repeat for like when he was little. So
it was a great movie.
It's kind of funny,
movie, man.
It is. It is. Johnny Zuko.
So who's your favorite pink lady?
Rizzo, of course.
That explains everything. Rizzo, of course. The hard one has got to be Rizzo, right? Not Sandra D, not Frenchie.
Sandy
Rizzo.
Was so like, I don't know. She was so basic.
She's like a modern day.
I love Sandy's. No. He's like, I love Sandy's vocals. Like, I always preferred her vocals, but like, she's like much more basic as an adult. Just looking at her, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so the audience knows, my favorite Thunderbird was definitely Sonny Lattieri.
We know, fam.
I played him like 3 times in high school and throughout in summer camp when I did plays and stuff. I was always Sonny Lattieri. So that's the best Thunderbird, fam.
Yeah, and I like Sandy's outfit when she like changes her look up. I like that outfit.
At the very end, right?
Yeah. The other outfits, not so much. Just saying.
Oh man, and the cheerleading outfits and stuff like that. She looks so nice at the dance, but it sucks that I think her name was Cha-Cha DeGorio, got to go in there and swoop away from Sandy and win the dance off with Danny Zuko. You know what I'm saying? She stole it from Sandra D, and I'll never forgive her for that. I don't like Cha-Cha. I don't forgive Cha-Cha.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Anywho.
We're enough of the
guys,
Sandra D thing.
Everybody like and share and all that good stuff, especially the YouTube link. Obviously, the Rokfin. If you're on the Rokfin, come in where they don't censor us. But we're going to give a shout out to a lot of people at the end of the show because you guys have absolutely blown us away with your support. Every time we need something to go cover something, you guys have come in. So we really want to thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, truly amazing. Truly amazing. So let's get going, fam. What do you say?
Yeah.
I made a note. We'll make a meme with Danny Zuko going, Sandy, and we'll show a picture of AOC. That's what we'll do. Let's get to it, guys. All right. Now, I just think it just happened just a couple hours ago, fam. I haven't even looked about it. I think I saw it on the TVs. I think the Saudi coalition-led forces bombed a Houthi area and knocked out also, I think it killed several people and knocked out their internet. I have to look into that. That just happened today. But as you know, we've been seeing a lot of stuff going on. And I want to just talk a little bit about why the Houthis are bombing now the UAE, because every single time you hear anything on the TV screen, it's always Saudi-led forces, a Saudi-led coalition. The way the West kind of frames things, all the groups, and there are multiple groups, there's not just one group, are fighting with each other and fighting all around like a 3-ring circus over here. There's 3 predominant groups there. There's about 4 different groups. Yemen is broken up by a lot of different tribes and has a very rich history. The first thing I put up there was this old school map of North Yemen and South Yemen from 1967 to 1990 in South Yemen. Fam, I didn't know this until today. I was reading into it, but Yemen was the first communist state in an Arabic country. First and only communist state in an Arabic country. Did you know that, fam?
Yeah, fam.
I didn't. The reason why I didn't know is because then I heard it was pretty much the communists kind of ran the country for several years until they united once again, and then there was the Republic of Yemen. But it was a bunch of tribes pretty much, and that's the history of Yemen. There's a lot of different tribes. The North Yemen area with a lot of Shiites, which really make up what they call the Houthi rebels today. And then the South has two different groups. They have the Saudi-led coalition. They have actually three groups, two predominant groups. The Saudi-led coalition, which is run by Hadi, who's the president there, run by the Saudis. All the weaponry that we sell to the Saudis then get into Hadi's hands, or they're used by Hadi forces or Saudi Arabian forces to bomb the hell out of the Houthis. But then there's another group too as well, and it's called the STC. So let's get into it. Let's start with Al Jazeera. We'll go about as milquetoast as you can go. Always look at the language. When any type of Western media refers to the Houthis, they'll refer to them as rebel forces. Anytime you see any Iranian type of media, they'll refer to the Houthis as Yemeni forces. So it's like Iran recognizes the Houthis as the Yemeni force, and then obviously the West refers to them as rebels. So it says, Al Jazeera, what is behind the Houthi attacks in the UAE? The UAE, member of the Saudi-led coalition fighting the rebels, has largely avoided Houthi firing line until now. The suspected drone attack on Monday, claimed by Yemen's Houthis on the United Arab Emirates, leading to the deaths of at least 3 people at Abu Dhabi International Airport, marks the strategic shift by the Iranian allied rebel group. Now, for the record, we always hear when they ask the Houthis, "Are you being backed by Iran? Are you being backed by Iranian forces?" They always deny it. They'll always say no. They're independent. But since they're predominantly Shia, and they do have Sunnis that do fight with the Houthis in that area, but it's predominantly Shia, they'll always refer to them and make that line, fam, to make it look like it's always about Iran. So anytime the Houthis do anything, Iran will get the blame on the national scale. The UAE, which has been a member of the Saudi-led coalition fighting the Houthis and officially backing Yemen's government since March 2015, has largely avoided the Houthi firing line. Saudi Arabia has borne the brunt of the missile drone attacks sent from Yemen, and the last Houthi claim attack on the UAE was in 2018. Now, one thing that's a little bit kind of misleading when it talks about that article is that it talks about the UAE-led STC, which is known as the Southern, I have it right here, the Southern Transcontinental Council, right? Which is kind of like breaking off from the old South Yemenis. They're a separatist group, but they're backed by the UAE. It makes it sound like those forces are fighting alongside Hadi's forces, which are the Saudi-led coalition, but they're not. They're sometimes fighting each other. It's all inner conflict between tribes. So really, like I said, it's like a firing circle. Everybody's fighting each other. Areas are going back and forth. So I want to give a little context to who the STC are, right? The Southern Transitional Council, okay? The Yemeni war. And this is from Middle East Eye. And you can see they're a separatist group. It says, who is the STC? Formed in 2017, the South Transitional Council is a secessionist movement focused on gaining independence for South Yemen. Comprising of 26 members, the STC includes 5 governors from southern Yemen and 2 former government ministers. The STC emerged after Hadi, who is the Saudi-led forces person, fired Adan governor Andreas al-Zabadi for alleged disloyalty in April 2017. Hadi accused Zabadi of prioritizing the southern Yemen independence movement over a united Yemen. Zabadi's sacking led to mass rallies that were held in Adan to protest Hadi's move. Adan, which is a very important port we'll talk about in a second. The STC was subsequently, created a month later with Hadi describing the council as illegitimate. So you can see that even though they said this is a coalition forces of sorts, they're Saudi coalition, they've had issues. The STC is kind of a separatist movement. They're backed by the UAE, and that's who they are. So really, they're fighting each other right now. So if you look at this map right here, I said this is what the country looks like, and this is in 2020 before a certain peace deal was bargained, and we'll talk about it. If you look at this map in 2020, you can see that the blue, which are the Houthis, they control a lot, including Sana'a, right, which is the capital. The temporary capital at one point of Aden is now controlled by this STC. It's not controlled by those black marks, which you see on the pro-Hadi coalition. So right now, they don't have control of Aden. This is the Hadi, the Saudi forces. It's actually controlled by the UAE forces, while the Houthis are controlling the capital and the northwestern region of the country. And it's very important because when it comes down to it, a lot of this is all about shipping lanes. Who controls the shipping lanes? Right below that map, Johnny, I put a template. If you click onto it, it is by Wikipedia, but it's more of an up-to-date map of who controls what. And you can still see those same areas, Aden, which are down below, are controlled by the STC. And you can see Sana'a is controlled by the Houthis. So literally, Hadi's forces, the Saudi-backed coalition forces, are not doing well at all. From what I'm told, even though they have a superior bombing campaign, kind of like the United States and it had in Vietnam, the Vietnamese, no matter what side they were on, they didn't support the United States being there. Hadi seems to have the same issues where he's not getting a lot of support on the ground. That's why even though they have a crazy bombing campaign, they've been losing territory, losing ground, and a lot of tribes are not aligning with them. They're either going the other way, either kind of going with the Houthis or going with the STC. Now that we understand who the STC is, and we look at those things, it's like, why are the Houthis now targeting the UAE-backed STC? Because mostly, the majority of the time, fam, you'd hear about the Houthis fighting against Hadi's forces, which were the Saudi coalition, where our bombs and our missiles are coming from. Well, let's take a look at this because it gets a little suspicious here too as well. And it's something that we were paying attention to over a year ago. There's the Abraham Accords peace agreement. And I don't know if you remember this because a lot of, patriots were saying peace is breaking out in the Middle East. Donald Trump is even making peace agreements. And this talks about a treaty of peace and diplomatic relations and full normalizations between the UAE and the state of Israel. The government of the United Arab Emirates and the government of the state of Israel aspiring to realize the vision of the Middle East region that is stable, peaceful, and prosperous for the benefit of all states and peoples in the region, desiring to establish peace, diplomatic and friendly relations, cooperation, and full normalization of ties between them and their peoples in accordance with this treaty, and to chart together a new path, unlock the vast potential of their countries and of their region, reaffirming the joint statement of the United States, the state of Israel, the UAE, dated on 13th of August, 2020, believing that the further development of friendly relationships meets the interest of lasting peace in the Middle East, and the challenges can only be effectively addressed by cooperation and not by conflict. Like I said, I didn't want to really quote anything from this particular article from Fox, but Trump announces historic peace agreement between Israel and UAE. And fam, if you ever get a chance to use a picture of Trump like that with that face, that you got to use it. So that was part of the article. And it was talking about this whole peace agreement. Now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the UAE has normalized relations with Israel. So what happens now? So it says the UAE gets drones as China ramps up sales. So as soon as that happens, America, who was already selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, is now going to start selling weapons, advanced weapons and drones to UAE. And I also use this article, fam, because a lot of people have kind of been like, well, why are you being so tough on China lately and stuff like that? To show you that China's no choir boy, China was selling a lot of drones to the UAE that were being used to kill Houthis. So only in a few years, China has been able to research, produce, and reaffirm its armed, unnamed aerial vehicles. So this is shortly after the peace agreement. The White House's recent decision to allow the sale of advanced weapon systems to the UAE highlights the deliberate shift in U.S. policy towards the UAE after it signed the normalization accords with Israel. So here come the weapon sales. Why would the UAE want American drones as it already has dozens of Chinese armed unmanned aerial vehicles in its inventory? And why has the United States now agreed to these sales, overcoming its traditional reticence to sell Thank you. Sophisticated weapons to other countries. So out of the blue, fam, there's a peace deal that's signed between the UAE and Israel, brokered by Donald Trump. And all of a sudden, here come the weapon sales, right? Not to mention they're already getting weapons from the Chinese as far as drones. But last year, we were saying something's going on because our friend Cynthia McKinney actually made a tweet about this around the same time, almost the same day I talked to a friend. And it's like something's going on in Socotra. Now, where is Socotra? If you look at the map, John, I don't know if you want to bring up the map from up top over there. You're going to see, I'll go up there real quick. The very first map. You're going to see this orange little island on the bottom right-hand corner of the picture. That is Socotra. It's an island located the southeastern part in the ocean of the island, but it's very strategic as far as shipping lanes and what goes on. And when we saw this going on, it was just kind of a little odd. We're like, what's going on over here? Because there were reports, and I said, what's really going on in Socotra? Israel tourists flocked to Socotra, okay? Part of an illegal UAE-run holidays. I get my letters messed up. The UAE is continuing to operate direct flights and tours to the Yemeni island of Socotra despite not having the permission of the government. This is even a situation, the Houthis weren't saying anything, but Hadi was saying something. He was like, what are you doing? You're issuing visas. The UAE is issuing visas for Israeli citizens to go over to this island. You know, and when we looking at this, I'm like, okay, it's just, you know, Israeli people wanting to go take a nice, vacation over there. It's a beautiful island. It looks like paradise, the water, the whole 9 yards. It has interesting vegetation, plants, and trees that aren't anywhere. But it said, according to local sources, hundreds of foreign tourists have arrived on the island over the past few days as visas were granted to them by Abu Dhabi from where weekly direct flights started in March. Now, when I was watching videos, fam, people in Socotra were talking about how they lost so much business since the civil war had been going on in Yemen. The travel there, the flights there, everything had pretty much slowed down to a crawl. They lost 80% of the business that was coming in there. They were depending on these tourists, people coming in for tourism and taking a look around. So now out of the blue, here comes the UAE, who doesn't really even have control, is not recognized by anybody. They're writing visas to Israeli citizens to go there. So a lot of people thought, well, what is this just about? And I have a picture there. It says Israeli tourists in Socotra. You can see it. And if you get the chance, fam, go take a look at this beautiful island. I wanted to go there. I was like, we got to go there. Johnny Socotra, get him on the line, right? Let's get on over there. But was it really about tourism? Because the island was very strategic, a lot of people were saying, when it comes to shipping lanes. Because when it comes to the one strait that goes into the Red Sea, right on the south of Yemen, somewhat along the lines of close to 10%, 15% of the world's energy resources goes through that strait. So as you know, and you know this from just being in Nicaragua, if they in fact build a canal from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, the United States is going to flip their lid because now they're not controlling the shipping lanes as they do the Panama Canal. So a lot of the things that seem to be going on in Yemen seem to be about geopolitics behind the scenes, because, we've even heard Biden say he's going to end the war. They were always talking about the situation with the Houthis, how it's one of the worst humanitarian crises, but why are we still funding it? Why is it still going on? How does Israel now play a part? What's going on with the UAE? Why are they getting bombed by the Houthis? So was it really about tourism in Socotra? Well, no, it's not, because now, and this is in the beginning of January, we found this out, the UAE is establishing a second military airport, son of a beeswax, a second military airport on Yemen's strategic Socotra Island, report says. And pretty much, fam, they're setting up shop. And they're using, with the help of the Israelis, it's your strategic island. They are setting up shop. They are building a military-style base. They've taken control of the island. Like I said, it's pretty much like there's not a lot of, it's not modernized on that island whatsoever, right? It's old school. So that's what's going on over there. Now, as tensions are starting to heat up, it looks like the Houthis, who are kind of pretty much beating back a lot of Hadi's forces, Saudi coalition, they're now looking at what's going on with the STC. And now they're fencing off with each other now, okay? Yemen's Houthis seize a UAE flagship carrying military supplies off of Socotra. So what happened, fam, is that they're clocking what's going on now. Now the Houthis are paying close attention to what the STC is doing. There was a ship going through the straits, and when it got to Houthi territory, they stopped it, they boarded it, they seized it. It had a UAE flag. It said it was going up to the southern part of Saudi Arabia. So it's very confusing and very suspicious on why that ship is going through that way. There are some talks that people are saying maybe it was going up to Israel, since Israel is now doing stuff with the UAE. They have this bond, they have this peace agreement out of nowhere. And I was very suspicious when that was going on. I was like, why are they doing that? There's something going on. Why are they doing that? Well, now Israeli citizens or Israeli personnel is on the island of Socotra with the UAE, and the Houthis are stopping ships going up that way. So it seems like something is going on. Now, this is from the Tehran Times. And notice the language here, fam. It says Yemen takes on the UAE. But listen as Press TV now, right? Tehran Times, Press TV, how they refer to the Houthis as the Yemenis. According to the statement, Operation Hurricane Yemen targeted Dubai and Abu Dhabi airports, the Masfaha oil refinery in Abu Dhabi, and a number of important and sensitive Emirati sites and facilities. The Yemeni army spoke, and that's the Houthi army, spokesman pointed out that the successful operation was carried out with 5 ballistic and winged missiles, as well as a large number of drones. The Yemeni Armed Forces spokespersons noted that Operation Hurricane Yemen had successfully achieved its goals. Sari said the armed forces are implementing today what they promised, and they renewed their warning to the countries of aggression that they will receive more painful blows. Yemen's military has warned foreign country citizens and residents of the UAE enemy state to stay away from vital sites and facilities for their own safety, fam. So they're letting them know, we are now looking at you. We hit you. We will continue to hit you. You back these forces against the Houthis. You know, the Houthis are going to eventually, I think, try to get down to Aden, which is a big port south in Yemen that is controlled by the STC. It's not controlled by the Saudi-led government. It's controlled by the UAE forces and the STC. Because remember, the Houthis are dealing with a blockade. They got one of the worst humanitarian crises there. They never historically controlled Aden. Even when they were back in the days, they were more part of the northern region, but they're going to try to get down to Aden because right now, whoever's controlling Aden is very important. There's also, the last thing I have to say about this, there's a small Yemeni island. If you look in the strait, the island is called Parim. It's also in the strait, okay, going into the Red Sea. So now if you can control Socotra, you control Parim Island, you're going to control a lot of shipping lanes. It's very strategic and geographic. So this is from Sputnik. Who is behind the mysterious airbase on the Yemeni island? Thought to be controlled and then controlled by Houthis forces. Parim Island is also known as Mayan in Arabic. It is located just 3.5 kilometers from Yemen's mainland. Is widely recognized for its crucial strategic position. The island was lost to the Houthi militants during the 2015 takeover, but later retaken by Gulf Arab forces backing the government of Hadi. Construction of the mysterious airbase spotted on Yemen's volcanic Parim Island is being linked to the UAE, according to anonymous officials. So, fam, there you got it. There you have it. That's what's really going on. A lot of craziness in Yemen. Different factions going on, but it looks like the UAE is involved now, and the UAE has a new partner in that area, and it's Israel. So I think it's more about geopolitics. I think it's more about these shipping lanes. You know, we saw Socotra last year, and we're like, wait, why is the UAE issuing these visas to go to Socotra? They, you know, and they don't even really control. UAE never even controlled Socotra. It was controlled by the Yemeni Hadi forces. Not anymore. So that's what's going on. And we just learned, like I said, I think the Saudis just hit the Houthis again today, killing a lot of people and knocking out their internet for that part of that country. So that's the skinny of what I learned from Yemen.
Damn, that was like a quick deep dive into intricate politics of Yemen, I do have to say that I'm not surprised Israel is working with the UAE, because Israel's whole intention in West Asia is to expand and to basically control everything. And of course, they're going to be working with Saudi Arabia, and you can see that that's going to happen regardless. So this whole situation where they're vacationing in this island is really, to me, that was obnoxious, because you have Palestinians and Yemeni people literally dying because they're living in dire poverty. Palestinians in an open air prison, Yemeni people, of course, being subjected to a lot of just absolutely human rights violations from Saudi Arabia. And you see these people behind the scenes making business deals. It just goes to show you where the policies are headed there geopolitically, and it's gross.
It's kind of like, as I, speaking to people from the region, reading a lot of articles sent that way, double checking, cross checking, trying to learn everything possible about it. Been paying attention to this issue for quite some time. Like I said, last year when I looked at Socotra, it was so beautiful. I was like, guys, we got to go. Let's go to Socotra, man. This is amazing. This place looks beautiful. But it was awfully suspicious that they were sending Israelis over there. And why are they sending them over there? Like, I don't know if it's at this point, if it was just tourists, fam.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think it was more to it. Now we see another base going up there, another military base. And, the UAE, they were able to kind of go in there, and this whole movement in the South kind of somewhat like co-opt it and take it. Like it was the same movement, this independence movement, and get behind it. And, the UAE is also a rich country, can really help out, these people who have a movement going. And it's just like the West. And then they're like, well, if the Saudis ain't getting it done, but the UAE is getting it done, let's make an alliance over here. These are shipping lanes. These are really important. And like coming back from Nicaragua, we understand the importance. If they build this canal, America's going to flip their lid. There's no way they're just going to sit back and let this happen. And, the Chinese are coming in. They helped build the dam in Ethiopia. So it's just like you got to connect the dots and you got to see what's going on. And, I'm thankful to Cynthia McKinney, too, for also leaving the tweet for me to get more like, okay, what's going on over here? What's this whole Socotra thing? And, I never heard of Socotra before. And, we just been keeping our eye on it. And now it seems to come to fruition. The Houthis boarded a ship leaving Socotra that was said to be going to the southern part of Saudi Arabia. Was it going to the southern part of Saudi Arabia, or was it going up to Israel? Because the Israelis are on the island now. So you got to question these things, like what's going on, what is happening. Parim, like I said, that's another spot right there. They want to control these shipping lanes, fam, because if you control the shipping lanes, the empire stays in power.
Yeah. All righty. Well, we have some Super Rays. Trey Wright.
We do. Whoa. Wow.
Trey Wright. Going to see the new Spider-Man again. I will watch later. Love you all. We love you, Trey Wright. Emblem Fate. I haven't seen you in a while. Are you guys still going to stream on Odyssey? Also, it's extremely gross for liberals to continue to pretend to care about fake non-coups like January 6th when at the same time they're cool with genocide in the Donbass and arming Nazis in Ukraine. Absolutely. Absolutely. Also, TCAN. Happy all cash, hashtag all cash Friday. Friday, fam. I agree, fam. Tim L. Great show, fam. Wondering if we are witnessing the end game of an empire. We absolutely are. It's the empire falling apart. Strong resistance movements appear to be springing around the world. Thoughts? They're springing around the world because the rest of the world has their shit together on the anti-imperialist, populist or leftist, whatever fronts. Whereas here, people are busy, doing dumb shit, and talking about how upset at Biden they are. When in 2 seconds, come the midterms and come 2024, they're going to vote. They're going to tell you to vote Democrat because we have to stop the fascists. They're going to do, mark my words, they're going to do it again because that's what they do. And Kristen Nye, here you go. Thank you, Kristen Nye. Thank you guys so much for your support.
It is always appreciated on the couch.
You didn't have the permission.
I think I owed you one from last show.
Damn. Okay, so the creators of Don't Look Up, Adam McKay being one of them, are going to now give you a movie, a Hollywood spin on January 6th, guys. And Pelosi, of course, is making a lot of money while this is happening. While they're talking about January 6th, making a lot of money. And Donald Trump is, of course, blaming Pelosi. And we're going to see why. So I wanted to mention this because I thought it was really cartoonish, right? Where's Steve? And I saw a documentary with Johnny that was on, what was that on? Netflix? HBO. My dad was like, watch this documentary. So we watched it, and they at least credited John Farina for his footage, and I think they used our friend Ford Fisher's footage, and they credited him too. But it was this whole thing where they were pretty much, talking about how the cops were beat, and they were like, they're traumatized, and they had this one lady who worked for Nancy Pelosi's office crying, how she was scared for her life. And so, like, the way they show it, right? Like, they get that point across, like, this is scary. So, of course, it's no surprise to me that Billy Ray, Adam McKay are teaming up for January 6th film about January 6th assault on the Capitol. But I want to read to you how this article spins it, because this is Deadline. This is like Hollywood. Deadline comes up with all the, ooh, so-and-so is playing in this movie and blah, blah, blah. This movie's coming up. So they said, the January 6th assault on the U.S. Capitol, considered the worst domestic attack on democracy since the Civil War, will be the subject of J6, a feature film scripted and to be directed by Billy Ray as its follow-up to the highly rated Showtime miniseries, The Comey Rule. Joining him is Adam McKay, who is in the Oscar hunt now for Don't Look Up, the World Economic Forum propaganda film. McKay will produce, along with Todd Schulman, Josh McLaughlin, Colin Hoback, and Shane Salerno, who was the executive producer of The Comey Rule. So they're going to do this, and it's going to be an absolute shit show. You know how it's going to be. And yeah, so they're really going to take all of this shit that happened, specifically police officers Michael Fanoni and Harry Dunn, as well as members of Congress who were trapped inside the Capitol when the violent siege unfolded. And yeah, this is going to be great.
Bam.
Bam, what do you think? Are you excited to watch this?
They were trapped inside the Capitol. Yeah, please.
Who's going to play Pasta Jardula and Johnny Sue and Fiorella? Who's going to play Sandy? Who's going to play AO Sandy?
Sandy, I have a pair of sneakers. You can use them. I hope I get to have a baby.
You almost got killed. I mean, this is fucking hilarious. And we never really got to have our January 6th discussion because we were in Nicaragua and all this shit happened. But so I didn't get it out as to how like ridiculous, especially it looked from like Nicaragua, because we were literally flying into Nicaragua on January 6th. And I'm flying into a country where there was a U.S.-backed attended coup less than 4 years ago, and you have these people clutching their pearls about a supposed coup. When we were there, we know that some of these people got a little bit aggressive and violent. We know that some of these people broke property, but it was a riot. It wasn't an insurrection. It wasn't, it wasn't a coup attempt. And we know this because they literally, the police officers literally gave up. There was somehow miscommunication about how many people would show up. And because we were there days prior for several events, and we were surrounded by cops within minutes, less than that. So it's just hilarious to me. They're going to milk this for all it is. And this is how you know Hollywood is tied, to the State Department. This is how you know. Because they have to continue fear-mongering and propagandizing people since the Civil War, they say. The worst attack since the Civil War.
Well, I'm glad they didn't say since Pearl Harbor or since 9/11. That's the ones they've been using. But they've used those analogies. And let me tell you something, fam. I think you were lucky to be traveling on January 6th and not stuck in front of a TV, because it was nauseous. Like, it was just nauseating at best. Literally, they just had all these specials when they just played victim the whole day. Like, literally, they're going to recall the day, the memories of January 6th, and each one of them got up time and time again, just making themselves out to be the victim. Meanwhile, outside that building where they're sitting there and playing the victim, there are real victims on the street, homeless people all around Washington, D.C. I think it was disturbing, some of the people we saw that were like, remember them using the air to dry their stuff right near the ellipse, right near the Capitol building too, as well. They're like homeless people on the streets using the vents from the streets coming up from the ground. It was just like awful. And it was like, you guys are sitting here playing victims and there are people outside starving. It's disgusting. But they are going to milk it from what it's worth. You should have seen the special they had that night too, as well. Like they went into the actual lobby area where the people were let in, or where they went in and stuff, where we're getting a little rowdy and stuff. And, they did their coverage right from there. Anderson Cooper, right? I'm saying, talking to Nancy Pelosi. This is where Lincoln's office was, and they desecrated it. It's awful. Let's enact more spying laws. Let's infringe upon people's civil liberties. It's just like 9/11. They just start taking away these civil liberties. They give themselves more spying power. They give themselves more protection, and they never give it back. They take it for themselves. And while we are getting screwed here left and right, like I said, on January 6th, the banks were actually cooperating with the FBI without warrants, needless to say, to get people's information that they were using the ATM by the Capitol buildings as a way to get them on no-fly list and bringing them in for questioning. It's disgusting, fam.
Yeah, exactly.
Due process is gone.
What?
Due process is gone.
Oh yeah, that's been gone a long time. So Trump decided that Nancy Pelosi was to blame for January 6th because he said that he called up the National Guard to quell violence at the Capitol, but that she turned down the help. And he said that great people took part in the rally and there was a lot of love in the air, which he's actually not. I don't know these people, right? But there were a lot of people that were, the vast majority of the thousands and thousands of people that were there, because there were thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah.
The vast majority of the thousands of people that were there were not doing what the people that rushed at the Capitol were doing. They were literally just like watching, and they were like, oh, like, and so when we say this, it's been over a year. When we say this, people are like, why are you defending these Nazis? Like, because those people were Nazis. They were Trump supporters. They felt cheated. There was, whatever. I don't agree with them ideologically, but they were not. You're going to tell me this grandma that was prancing around there was a Nazi. I'm sorry. You can't label everybody a Nazi. Like, go chill out. And so also the fact that these people, the FBI director was under questioning, like they had so many holes, like they couldn't, pretty much, like, they had to admit that there were some agents involved in the crowd itself. And so that this whole thing is just they continue milking it, like Pasta said too. And Pelosi is, of course, now everybody's talking about this, right? About January 6th still, but they're ignoring the fact that Nancy Pelosi is under the eye again by people who've been watching her, because she literally said her excuse to being against like limiting lawmakers' stock trading activity is that she trusts our members. She says, I trust our members because people are trying to stop these stock trades that should be completely illegal. And she said that the reason she's against limiting stock trading for lawmakers is because I trust my members. So she said to give a blanket attitude of we can't do this and we can't do that because we can't be trusted. I just don't buy into that. Okay, so this is days after she came out against the resolution last month. And then her husband, Paul, of course, traded millions of dollars in tech stocks. But her son has also been involved in this as well. And so it's kind of, I don't know how you feel about a member of Congress saying, oh, I trust the Speaker of the House, Speaker of the fucking House saying, no, we can't ban stock trades because I trust my Congress members, has got to be the biggest load of shit. And
trust them to rob the house, trust them to take everything.
I just don't understand. And they're building a wall too outside of the White House. I mean, so it's just a joke. She says, so when people talk about, well, somebody might do this and somebody might do well, I trust my members. So that's what she said. She said that I have great confidence in the integrity of my members. They are remarkable. And she's just avoiding the situation. And again, Paul Pelosi, right, bought stock in Alphabet worth between $500,000 and $1 million. He also bought shares in Disney worth between $100,000 and $250,000. And 3 days after that, on December 20th, he made 2 separate purchases in Salesforce worth between $100,000 and $250,000, and another between $500,000 and $1 million, and one purchase of Roblox worth between $250,000 and $500,000. And then he purchased Micron Technology at around the same amount, and he kept purchasing. I mean, he hasn't stopped purchasing. And so you guys can see the periodic reports. If you go to the thing, you guys can see the reports of how much the transaction that reveals that they're making millions off of this while she is in Congress. And so, you know, we know this has been happening. Nothing's going to get done about it because, again, like I said a few months, maybe a month ago, the squad is pushing a bill that is against Congress members doing it, but allows the husbands and whoever to do it still. So that's the squad feigning that they're actually pushing that. So they're distracting you. They're distracting you guys with bullshit about January 6th while members of Congress are blatantly committing fraud. I mean, this is to me, this is money laundering, legalized form of bribery. This is, I don't know. I mean, this is the cartoon we live in.
This is, and you know, it's crazy right now too because you know Pelosi, her son, made a lot of money in Ukraine too as well.
Yep.
You know, we talk all the thieves of Ukraine, all the saber rattlers now today. Those are the ones who actually pushed for the coup and changed that government in 2014 with the color revolution. You know, from Biden, attaboy, giving the thumbs up, Adam Schiff, right? Like getting a lot of money from Ukrainian oligarchs that eventually would get like security deals within the new government of the Ukraine, Pelosi's son, getting deals there as well. I mean, it was one thing after the other. And these are the people who are now back in business, manufacturing consent for more saber rattling and more aggressive acts towards Ukraine via Russia. In Ukraine, pointed at Russia. So, I mean, it's the same shit over and over again. These people raped and pillaged Ukraine. You're talking about over 15,000 deaths in the civil war, one of the poorest countries now. They're just stuck like Chuck. They don't know what to do, how to get out of this whole situation, run by oligarchs. And it's just, these are the same people, and you want to trust them. Oh, I trust my members of Congress to do what? To do the right thing. You trust them not to buy stocks when they know a deal is coming through? When you know a deal is coming down the pipeline with Tesla and the government, you buy Tesla stocks because you know it's gonna go up. I mean, how can you sit there and lie to the people? We've had too much compliance in this country, fam. Too much compliance, and people just playing team sports and not calling these assholes out. This is criminal. This is laundering. You know what I'm saying? This is that's all it is. And it's ridiculous that the people are going to allow this to happen. Now, how can you stand by the Democrats? Vote blue, fam. They're the better form of fascism.
Yeah, and they're going to continue doing this. The squad voted for Pelosi without getting anything back. Just reminding everybody that's what they did. Johnny had a tweet up. I want to read it for the audience because there it is. If as an NFL player we aren't allowed to bet on games, which I fully agree with, why are government officials allowed to buy stocks/stock options? So again, they because
have you ever heard of Pete Rose, fam?
The rules don't apply to them. Yeah. No.
Pete Rose is a famous ball player. He has more hits than anybody in the history of baseball, aka Charlie Hustle, famous Cincinnati Red guy. He was just one of those dirty, gritty, hardcore players. You know what I'm saying? He was known in an all-star game for running into the catcher and taking him out. And an all-star game, which is mostly like an exhibition and fun. Well, Pete Rose has been banned from Major League Baseball, a lifetime ban, because he was betting on his own team as he was managing for them. He was the manager, he was the coach, and he was betting against them or on them. And that's the thing. He got a ban for life. And a lot of people keep on telling like the Major League Baseball, lift this guy's ban. He was wrong. Let him come back. Let him get into the Hall of Fame. He can't get into the Hall of Fame. He has a lifetime ban because he was doing exactly what Nancy Pelosi is doing in Congress right now, and all her constituents are suffering down below, and her members are making a ton of money hand over fist, while the average guy, they get the plug pulled for them Wall Street bet style. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
So speaking of ridiculous, Reuters, guys, I don't know if you know this, but Reuters is partnered with the World Economic Forum, right?
No, they're not.
They are. But they're fact-checking these conspiracies and the smears against the World Economic Forum, right? And so they wrote an article defending them from these conspiracies. And I'm going to read some of it because, as you know how this is going to go, right? So they say, fact check, multiple misleading suggestions made in documentary on the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is about a documentary made about the pandemic, but they talk about the World Economic Forum on here. And I haven't seen this documentary, so I really want to watch it. So they mentioned Bill Gates. The footage directs attention to Event 201, a pandemic simulation held in October 2019, months before the outbreak of COVID-19. It was a tabletop event held by Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, along with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Nothing to see here. There was a suggestion in the documentary that Gates and others had prior knowledge of the COVID-19 pandemic due to the similarity with Event 201, which stimulated the outbreak of a novel zoonotic coronavirus. Johns Hopkins has since stressed that Event 201 was organized due to a, quote, growing number of epidemic events, unquote, and they give you a link for that. It was based around a fictional coronavirus pandemic and designed to model preparations and response. It was just a coincidence. That's it. That it just so happens that months before the pandemic, right? Because I'm agreeing with what they're saying. It was just a coincidence. Okay, there's no evidence that it was anything more than the coincidence. Okay, no evidence whatsoever. You just know the connections with Johns Hopkins, Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, and the history. And so so they talked about the animal trials, and then they say in September 2020, Pfizer and BioNTech released information about the effects of their mRNA vaccine in mice and non-human primates. Moderna has also released similar information. And they're talking about the trials, and they say more information regarding this debunked video can be read in the Reuters check here. Then they talk about 5G and all this other stuff. And they say the first known outbreak has been traced back to Wuhan, China. They're still on that. And then, and then they mentioned the Great Reset, right? So this is what I wanted to get to too, is it's the Great Reset. So the theme linking many of the earlier topics in the documentary is the suggestion that world leaders and society's elite are working together to create a world with, quote, harsh, tyrannical rules governed by a centralized totalitarian state. That is totally not happening. This, it suggests, will be brought into being the Great Reset, a sustainability plan proposed by the World Economic Forum, WEF. So again, even Reuters has to admit the Great Reset is a real thing. It was a specific topic talked about at the World Economic Forum. The documentary then refers to a social media clip from the WEF that makes 8 predictions about the world in 2030, which is Agenda 2030. We talked about this on Wednesday. What day is it? The footage specifically highlights 3 points: that people will cease to own anything, everything will be rented and delivered by drone, and Western values will be pushed to breaking point. You guys heard me read the article. That's the article. That's what they say. However, this is not what the Great Reset proposes, nor does it have anything to do with the social media clip. The World Economic Forum pitched the idea of a Great Reset on capitalism in June 2020 after noting the pandemic was increasing inequality. It encourages 3 components, including asking government to improve fiscal policy, implement overdue reforms such as wealth taxes, and push for the efforts that boosted health sectors in 2020 to be replicated across other sectors and bring about an industrial revolution. The 4th industrial revolution that we have been talking about. So they admit it, but then they're like, no, this is good. Okay, so stakeholder capitalism, that's what they mean. by addressing so they're revamping it as stakeholder capitalism. So that's the other thing. And then the other thing that they're talking about is a wealth tax. Well, if I'm rich and you're making me pay a certain amount of taxes, I can easily bypass those taxes because you're not addressing offshore. You're not addressing the other loopholes that are in there. So a wealth tax isn't going to fix anything, right? And so they said that this has nothing to do with the Great Reset. It's a video formulated after members of the World Economic Forum's Global Future Councils made various predictions about the world in 2030, whether good or bad. Danish politician Ida Auken, who wrote about the prediction that people would no longer own anything, added an author's note to her piece to stress it was not her vision of utopia. So, yeah, she said, some people have read this blog as my utopia or dream of the future. It is not. It is a scenario showing where we could be heading for better or for worse. I wrote this piece to start a discussion about some of the pros and cons of the current technological development. When we are dealing with the future, it is not enough to work with reports. We should start discussions in many new ways. So, verdict, misleading, right? Okay,
misleading.
Okay, but before I hear from you, Pasta, I just want to say, but just so you guys know, it would have been nice for Reuters to let people know that there's a conflict of interest because Reuters is partnered with the World Economic Forum for exclusive content distribution on Reuters Connect. Okay, it's the world's largest multimedia news provider, and it announced a partnership with the World Economic Forum a few months ago, a year ago, actually, technically a year ago, literally. And they were talking about how they're going to have, a direct partnership with video, audio, text, photo content, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so. Yeah, so the fact checkers are partnered with the thing they're fact checking. So there's no conflict of interest here. I mean, I would certainly think that there would be a conflict of interest. And by the way, notice that article mentioned the COVID pandemic. Well, this is Jim Smith. He's a second board member. Jim Smith the second. He's a board member of Pfizer, chairman of Thomson Reuters Foundation, former president and CEO of Reuters. Okay, he's a board member of Pfizer. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. He's a non-executive director of Pfizer. He also serves on the board of the World Economic Forum's Partnering Against Corruption initiative and is a member of the Forum's International Business Council, as well as the International Advisory Councils with the British American Business and the Atlantic Council. And you can see him right here, James C. Smith, age 57, President and Chief Executive Officer of Thomson Reuters Corporation, the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals since January 2012. Its Chief Operating Officer from September 2011 to December 2011, and its CEO from 2008 to 2011. So my issue is, Pasta, is this not a conflict of interest on both ends? I don't know. It's one gigantic conspiracy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff is falling into like this mass formation, right? This mass psychosis of sorts. Like you just keep repeating a lie and it becomes the truth, and people just tend to follow along. This article that we were just reading when it came from Reuters, it reminded me a lot of what Dr. Fauci said when he was first questioned by Rand Paul. Once again, Senator Paul, you are wrong. That experimenting is not taking place. If it is taking place, it's happening in North Carolina. Like, Dr. Fauci, you just said it wasn't, but if it is, it's what? And that's the type of language and the type of mental psyops that's going on, this conditioning of sorts that even when it is true, and they're laying it out, event 201, it might have been almost exactly like a dry run for what was to come for COVID, but it had nothing to do with it, fam, nothing whatsoever, Event 2030, same thing, no, not at all. Not that they're still trying to push us to be scared, stay at home, depend on technology, listen to their type of news, their journalism, their propaganda. I mean, it's as clear as day, ladies and gentlemen. And we went over the lockstep document the other day by the Rockefeller Foundation that was written 10 years before this thing even happened. And there were so many damn similarities. I mean, there is a global agenda by the predator class to control the majority of people on this planet. And that's why I agree with people like Steve when they say there's no such thing as nation states at this moment right now. Nation states, the only real nation states that are existing are like states like Nicaragua, right? Like that's a fucking
and they're in
nation state.
danger.
Yeah.
And all these really like more self-sustaining autonomous areas are in danger from somebody or something. So I always say watch your back, even if you're making alliances, because when you're making alliances with big guys, you got to be careful. So the other thing I wanted to say is if you go to the worldforum.org and you click on their partners, you will find BlackRock as one of the World Economic Forum's partners. And they describe BlackRock as a global leader in investment management, risk management, and advisory services for institutional and retail clients, that they help clients around the world meet their goals and overcome challenges with a range of products that include separate accounts, mutual funds, iShares, and pooled investment vehicles, risk management and all that. So this is, they're speaking positively about BlackRock, and BlackRock is a partner. We know what BlackRock has done. They are buying up all the property they can get their hands on, and they're buying up companies and companies of companies. And so that's what they're doing. So I wanted to look at this article by Yahoo News, because they mentioned the Great Reset, and they talk about BlackRock is fueling a $120 trillion transformation on Wall Street. Okay. And they're not, it says big money is turning its back on companies that aren't conforming to one simple idea: sustainability. Interesting. Why would such a big investment company that owns so many smaller companies really focus on investment on sustainability? And these, BlackRock, within a year, 77% of institutional investors will stop buying into companies that aren't in some way sustainable. And the new king of Wall Street is leading the charge. BlackRock, with over $7 trillion in assets under management, says its clients will double their ESG investments in just 5 years. Money managers on the street are saying climate change is their top concern, and a leading criteria when determining where they put their money to work. Sustainable assets already account for $17.1 trillion, but there could be as much as $120 trillion up for grabs, and that's exactly why sustainable stocks are outperforming the market. They are the new go-to investment, could be far better than gold. The sector is a safe haven in that the road to sustainability is long, and it's not just big money's downside protection against ESG-related risk. And so I wanted to point this out there, because a lot of people think that automatically because somebody invests in sustainability that they're good, that they want something good for climate change. This is why when I was talking about Don't Look Up and being World Economic Forum propaganda, it's because one of the main characters in there, a lot of the people involved actually, but particularly Leonardo DiCaprio, is part of the World Economic Forum partnership. And so when you're talking about a film that's supposedly tackling climate change, when if you actually look at the film, they're basically saying that their whole thing was like, you beg the government, if the government doesn't do it, we're all going to die, essentially. And so they painted the people that were mad at the government as these lazy people who would just go and burn things and just be useless doomers. And that was, Jennifer Lawrence's boyfriend, Timothée Chalamet, in the movie. They were just like, you lazy and throwing things and burning things. And so there was no like solution. There was no like, hey, let's get everybody to rise up and take on these elites. It was just like, well, the government isn't doing anything. We tried. No, because that's not it. And so that's why I didn't like that movie, because a lot of people liked it. And to me, it was just like propaganda, and there was a lot of like politicizing of it. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of money to be made in the sustainability movement, in the climate change movement. That whole thing has been co-opted from people who actually wanted to stop climate change and wanted to actually address the concerns. It's been co-opted because now all you have is a lot of people making a lot of money based on sustainability. And BlackRock, because they are really good at what they do, they see where the writing on the wall is headed. They see that they can make money, so they're investing. And that's what the World Economic Forum is about. It's about these companies investing in sustainability. But what does that mean? It means they're going to privatize and own everything, and you're not going to own anything. Nature's not going to be free, and so on and so forth.
You just talk about BlackRock, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to commodify every single part of Mother Nature out there whatsoever. It's so funny when you look at that BlackRock website. It's the Davos agenda right underneath there. And BlackRock is the reason why the housing situation is the way it is. They're buying up trailer parks, they're buying up land, they're buying up houses. I get text messages all the day and phone calls, fam, about people going, "Hey, man, is your house still on the market? My old apartment stuff, that my family owned." I'm like, "No, man, it's been sold." There are not enough houses to buy right now. There's a housing shortage. And what's going on is BlackRock buying up a lot of these houses, buying up a lot of the trailer parks and all these communities and stuff like that, because they want to be your daddy. They don't want the next generation to own, right? They want us to rent from them. And that's what's going on. Only Vanguard is probably equally just as awful as BlackRock and doesn't give a damn. And also to the point of Hollywood too, right? We all understand and know what Hollywood is right now. It's part of the friggin' deep state of sorts, it's all about the programming and the conditioning and what they're doing. So many saviors. There's always going to be somebody to save you one night. They're glorifying the CIA and the FBI. Every year there's multiple CIA and FBI movies that are made where the agents are like friendly, cool guys. The newest one, I think, is Jason Statham. He's from he was from the movie with Brad Pitt, with the Guy Ritchie movie Snatch. Then he came over and he started making a lot of movies. Buff guy, bald head, but they're glorifying, the FBI and the intelligence agencies. Also, what they're doing now too, fam. And one of the new movies, it's a movie about 5 intelligence agencies: China, United States, Colombia, and I think Great Britain's another one. 5 ladies from these agencies working together to now go after their common enemy, hackers, because hackers are taking control of things. And who do they make look like a hacker right now in the public eye? Julian Assange. Oh, he told Chelsea Manning to hack into the computer for them, and that's why they're going after him. So they understand they're conditioning people in Hollywood to tell you who the enemy is, right? And so they condition people that way, and they just follow it up. We have Empire Education, we have Hollywood, we have the mainstream media, which is really the mainstream propaganda. It's scary times right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, but they're exposing themselves right now too. Johnny, we're gonna.
I would hope so, but you think,
the next one, because I want to translate. I want to translate it first. So we're gonna talk about this section, and this is gonna be still on YouTube. Because we're just mentioning it.
You want to read some super rays first?
There's no super rays.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah. So the UK is lifting most COVID restrictions. And the WHO is calling for a lift on travel bans, and they say that the vaccine mandates may not be needed. So this just happened, and I saw various people be really upset with this decision, and others be, happy. But Boris Johnson is getting rid of face masks, vaccine passports, and work from home. This is UK's Plan B. COVID-19's restrictions will be completely shredded, as he hailed the light at the end of the tunnel. Boris Johnson isn't a lot of people's favorites. That's certainly not mine. Yeah. But he said that the hated vaccine passports will be dumped along. This is from The Sun. Will be dumped along with requirements to wear face masks anywhere indoors. The guidance to work from home has been dropped, and the remaining rules will expire on January 26th. So they will kick in on Thursday morning. And the UK Prime Minister said the cabinet concluded that because of the extraordinary booster campaign, together with the way the public have responded to the Plan B measures, we can return to Plan A in England and allow Plan B regulations to expire. So self-isolation rules will expire in March. Also, Omicron has now peaked nationally. He warned boosters will be increasingly needed for international travel, and he resisted the pressure to scrap mandatory vaccination for NHS staff. So he didn't do that. And yeah, so that's what's going on in the UK.
Yeah.
And
you know what that's about, fam?
Yeah.
That's about people in the uprising. That's about their people pushing back. Boris Johnson just got caught partying with the Tories not too long ago, a couple months ago, while he was, enacting lockdowns of sorts or hardcore measures and vaccination passes and all this other things going on. And he really made himself look like an asshole in the eyes of the people. And that's what this is mostly about. It's about the people standing up and going, we're not going to take your shit anymore. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, here in the States, a little bit different. You got people on both sides of the fence. So I think the Biden government can continue to push what they want because they're not getting enough pushback. They're getting more compliance than what we're seeing in England. So that's what that is all about right now. He got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and that's why now he's retracting right now. He's trying to save his ass.
Yeah, and I mean, they're going to get rid of the vaccine passports, but in venues, but venues can still choose to implement them if they want. And you still have to isolate for 5 days if you have COVID, if you're positive for COVID, which is, I mean, duh. And that's going to be dropped also in March. And then the UK's daily COVID cases dropped 21% this past week. So they don't really have a lot of cases. So I don't really see anything wrong with what he's doing. A lot of people say it's, right wing, it's neoliberalism. I think he's just acting on like exactly what you say because he doesn't want to lose more support than he already has. Now, that's Boris Johnson. That's the UK. Ireland also is going to follow with ending a lot of these restrictions, essentially. A part of Ireland is part of the UK. The other part, obviously, is part of the EU, just for clarification. But the World Health Organization has called for lifting of international travel bans. This is big. They say that the international travel bans should be lifted or eased. They said that they do not provide added value and continue to contribute to economic and social stress. We know. The UN Health Organization updated its international health regulations during an emergency meeting by video conference from Geneva on Wednesday. And they said the failure of travel restrictions introduced after the detection and reporting of Omicron variant to limit international spread of Omicron demonstrates the ineffectiveness of such measures over time. Travel measures, example, masking, testing, isolation, quarantine, and vaccination, should be based on risk assessments and avoid placing the financial burden on international travelers. The WHO also said the requirement to provide proof of vaccination against COVID-19 for international travel may not be needed as the only pathway to condition permitting international travel. So what do you think of that? Do you think that this destroys the idea that there's going to be these, digital vaccine passports? Or do you think it's just kind of like people are getting scared now with all the pushback and it's eventually going to come and happen anyway? I think it's eventually going to come and happen anyway.
I think so too. And I'm not just being, a cynic by saying that, we saw what happened over here in the States when it got to the Supreme Court and everybody, the way it was framed. We didn't get to do the show together. You were in Nicaragua. That, oh my God, Biden got kicked in the teeth. He's, he didn't get OSHA to, mandate his mandates, whatnot. But all healthcare workers, though, they got to get the, because if they don't do that, and especially if they get Medicare and Medicaid from the state, they are now mandated and stuff. So they're going to always find a way to kind of slip back in the door and try to get things going. Right now, they have a PR problem, right? And we're going to see this weekend, this Saturday and Sunday across the world, there's supposed to be 200 protests, anti-mandate. So we'll see what's going to happen. But I sense for him that they're feeling a lot of pressure. They're taking a step back, but they're never going to stop. I mean, look at the way, we just went back into all these measures when Omicron out of the blue, right? We look like we're out of the blue. It's easing up. Here we go. Boom. Now let's go get your next boop, get your next boop booster. All that stuff's going back on. So I don't see them giving up right now. I just see them easing back. And then who knows what's going to be running in the newspapers the next day to kind of force people or push people back into that mode of, no, you have to get your what, and you need your papers to show that you got your what.
Right, because in other parts of the country, in other parts of the world, the opposite is happening. So the Austrian parliament approved mandatory COVID vaccinations for the entire country. And so this is for adults And it's the first European country that is actually doing this in spite of all the protests opposing the measure. And so tens of thousands of people have demonstrated against the vaccination since this has been announced. All parties except the far right supported the measure, with new legislation passing with 137 votes in favor and 33 votes against. The National Council said it is adopted with the necessary majority. To date, 72% of Austrian residents have been fully vaccinated against the coronavirus, in line with the European Union-wide average of just more than 70%, but several percentage points below regional neighbors such as Italy and France. Under the new law, after an initial introductory phase, those holding out against a jab can face fines of up to 3,600 euros, which is $4,084 from mid-March. The government initially wanted to cover everyone aged 14 and older, but now the measure only applies to adults except pregnant women and those with medical exemption. So if you don't get vaccinated, you are going to be fined a ridiculous amount of money. And yeah, so this is pretty bad. And they have security zones that they're setting up around health facilities and vaccination centers so that the police can turn away anyone causing difficulties, including demonstrators. And to incentivize those who may be wavering, the government is launching a lottery for all those vaccinated with prices of 500 euro vouchers to be used in shops, hotels, restaurants, and culture and sports venues. So, yeah, that's compulsory vaccination. And
you like the way the article framed it, though, fam? Except for the far right.
Well, I don't know. I don't think they framed it that way.
Over there.
I don't think I think that's the reality. And when it comes to government, that's what's happening. I mean, you looked at you can go back to Germany. The party that was opposing it was a party that had at one point included people in the very far right that were very sympathetic to ex-Nazis. So I mean, it's not a lie when they say
Why
that.
not just name the party? Just say the party there. Which party? You know, whatever the name of that party is, why not put it there? I mean, if you want to frame it a certain way, though, and even if it is, you're still kind of being, biased by framing it to far right rather than just saying that party, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but
I'm just saying
whether they are far right or not, they're going to use it to their advantage to make this a left-right issue, and it's not. So
of course. And that's the sad part, because it is framed as a like, you're only on the far right if you oppose vaccinations. I saw somebody, some idiot, say Max Blumenthal is going to be at the rally in DC, so right winger confirmed, and so he's like, it's just like ridiculous. It's like, it's the dumbest thing I've seen. I think Garland pushed back on that, was like, well, I'm going to be there and I'm as lefty as it gets. And it's insane how this whole situation is happening. And but what I do want to emphasize about this is the attempt to like push people via a lottery. We've seen that in California. We saw that in Los Angeles with the lotteries they were doing and all that. It's gross. We saw the video with the kids yesterday on Wednesday in France. All of these things, like incentivizing, indoctrinating people. That is part of the
free marijuana. Remember that one?
Yeah, marijuana. But there is pushback in Austria, and I just want to show real quick a video of people protesting the mandates, specifically right after Austria is officially saying that you must be vaccinated or face a fine of over 4,000.
I have stuff to say, but I'm not saying it. It's not.
Weil nächste Woche, da wird's im Parlament heiß hergehen. Da gibt's einen richtigen Tanz, das kann ich euch versprechen. Und ich kann dem Nationalratspräsidenten Sobotka nur raten, schon vorsorglich zur Prophylaxe ordentlich Beruhigungsmittel einzunehmen, damit er nicht overkickt von seinem Parlamentsausguck. Wenn wir ihn mit der Freiheit und der Wahrheit konfrontieren werden in dieser
So as you guys can see, there's pushback. There's been a lot of protests throughout Europe and the European Union all over the place against these mandates. Now, you don't see that here, but in the same type of level. But there is going to be an event on Saturday and Sunday. We will be covering that event as journalists, and bring you up to date as the latest info. Now, of course, we have to be careful because we're just going to be covering the event, but people we interview might say something, and so we have to figure out how we're going to do that. Because it's ridiculous. Like, if I'm going to an event, I'm going to cover it. I'm not trying to, vocalize I want to cover it. So, yeah, we'll be there. And we wanted to thank everybody who supported us to go to Nicaragua and Honduras, because you guys literally made it possible for us to be above our goal. We don't make a lot of money. We're entirely demonetized on YouTube. So, you guys can find our link to the Patreon, the PayPal, because we don't have the same ability to make money. We're put out in the algorithm on YouTube. It's completely just shut off. And of course, Rokfin has been our saving grace. So, we're going to go ahead and, I just want to show some of the names that have donated.
You got to read them off.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm just going to start naming some of them who are not private. Okay, so Paul Eisenberg, thank you for your donations. CW, Catherine Rose Caditz, Darren Alevi, Rob Janot, Jamal Nelson, Shannon Grove Garrett, Steve Wilbrant.
Hey, Stevie.
Amir Razagamanesh. Thank you. Elizabeth Scott, Dave Richter, Samora Winspear. Thank you to the anonymous people. AG, Martin Matlin, Misty's Cultist, Misty's Cultist.
Anna Mares.
Anna Mares. Thank you, Anna. Eduardo Benavides, Samantha Caldwell, Mohan. Anonymous. Yeah, another anonymous. Monin Menon, Joshua Angelis, another anonymous. Thank you very much. Catherine Rose Caditz, thank you very much. Another anonymous. Yair. This one by TD and by Rob Janot. You are all noble and beautiful. And he quoted John Lennon, when you do something noble and beautiful and nobody noticed, do not be sad, for the sun every morning is a beautiful spectacle, and yet most of the audience still sleeps. I love that quote. It's actually one of my favorites. I think that was TD who said that. And Rob Janot said, thank you for every word and step in support of Julian Assange. Convo Couch, love and strength to you all. Patrick Stanton, thank you. Richard Cohn, Mark Ford.
Richard, what's up, Richie?
Richard Marino, Elizabeth Scott, James Johnson. I love these people. I know they will cover this truthfully. Misty Bocher, Pedro Molina, Diana Fonseca. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you, another anonymous person as well. And we had a giant donation that really put us over the top. That person anonymous? Okay. And we can't say their name. So, but
yeah,
thank
it was
you
amazing.
so much.
Thank you so much
for everything you did and everything all of you have done. And I gotta say, I'm gonna remind everybody, on Monday, they will give the decision if Julian Assange's appeal case will be heard. So that's a very important thing. I know our Assange fam is gonna be covering that on Monday. Just wanted to give you guys the heads up. And they're gonna decide if Assange and his defense can appeal their ruling to the Supreme Court. And if they don't permit an appeal, it's going to be a big deal. And so we'll see. I highly doubt the Biden administration is going to do anything, but that's something big that's happening this Monday.
That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Johnny, you got anything else?
Nope.
All right, guys. So look for us over the weekend, a very big weekend, and the Convo Couch will be out there covering. Want to thank you all for helping us there, Get those boots on the ground. You guys were amazing last show. You guys have been amazing with the donations, the GoFundMe, our Patreon, the PayPal. We love you all, guys. Thank you so much. You guys don't understand how much you guys mean to us. You guys actually get us out there. It's all you. We have no corporate sponsors whatsoever. We're just people powered. No super PAC. Fam does not work for the Russian government and get paid with vodka. That's a lie. Don't listen to that.
Well,
we'll see you over the weekend. Watch out for our stuff for Pasta Jardula.
Fiorella, and we will also be releasing some of the interviews from Nicaragua that are finally translated, and they're very good. And you'll hear answers to a lot of the questions and allegations the State Department has been advocating. So from me, from Johnny, from Pasta, Convo out.
Bye, everybody.